How to make the most out of an SLP career. What does it mean to make the most out of your career? Is that just a really fancy way of ignoring the hard realities any job or career brings? I'm going to argue that no, it's not. I won't deny the struggles that SLPs face between lack of recognition and awareness of who we are, the fight to access instrumental studies, and other common challenges that exist. But if you're here because you want to be, you have no desire to leave the field, and you want to help prevent burnout and overwhelm, then there are steps to take, yes, to make the most out of your career as an SLP. Here are 3 ways you can do that. Let's dive in. I'm Theresa Richard. I've been a medical speech pathologist for 15 years. I'm a board-certified specialist in swallowing and swallowing disorders. I'm the founder and CEO of the MedSLP Collective and MedSLP Education. In Adam Grant's recent book, Think Again, which I think should be essential reading for all SLPs, he mentions that continuous learning is an exercise that should allow us to think about being wrong differently, because we are not permanently locked into our thoughts and opinions. When new information arises, we should be proud to admit that we've changed or evolved. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to not stop learning. We are constantly learning new things in this field, and it's important to stay open and flexible to allow for that. How would you feel if you were just diagnosed with cancer and your oncologist, who's in his 60s, said, "We've been using the same chemotherapy and radiation treatment for the last 30 years because that's what we learned about in med school, so it must be true." That sounds so utterly ridiculous, doesn't it? As technology and science has evolved, our field and the medical field have evolved. It's critical that we keep up with that. And to the point about constantly learning, Dr. Andrew Huberman from Stanford Medical Center recently pointed out that when we fail to learn something, our attention levels increase. That increase can be leveraged to heighten learning capacity on subsequent attempts. Scientific findings suggest that setting the level of challenge to one where you make errors about 15% of the time is ideal for learning. How about that? So keep learning and failing, my friends. Join a community of like-minded colleagues. You cannot possibly know everything or have experience with everything, and you might learn that you're more passionate about a different setting than you thought. In the MedSLP Collective, we've had members share their success stories in switching settings because they wanted a new challenge. I have a colleague now that worked clinically in a specific department in the hospital for over 10 years, but she just really felt burnout after working through COVID through the last few years. She decided she wanted a new challenge and wanted to get into an administrative role with program development and was hired for a new leadership role. She said at first she was so overwhelmed and wondered what she had gotten into. But she said it's been about the best 6 months in her new role, and she feels so fulfilled being challenged every day and constantly learning new things that she can implement for SLPs across her entire hospital system. I'll be posting other videos just like this one that you won't want to miss. So make sure to hit that like or subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Do you have questions about how to make the most of your SLP career? Leave them in the comments below and we'll get them answered for you. Immerse yourself with other disciplines to learn how you can work together. I want to share a few stories of other professionals, other colleagues that I've worked with. I once worked in an LTAC, a long-term acute care setting, and we had patients that were on trachs and vents and a lot of respiratory difficulties. I'd had a little bit of experience working with these patients, but there was one respiratory therapist that I worked with that just taught me so much about this population. And she was so fascinated by what we did with fees and with speaking valves. And we worked so well together. And she would ask me a lot of questions. I would ask her a lot of questions. She would ask me why I was doing things. I would ask her why I was doing things. And together, both of our knowledge just increased so much. So I really want to encourage you, lean into these other professions. They want to learn from you as much as you want to learn from them. I also worked alongside a well-known ENT in an area that I was doing fees in. And same thing, I would help him do fees for his patients with swallowing troubles. And it was really interesting how we both viewed the fees differently, and things that I looked for and things that he looked for. And it really broadened my perspective so much more and helped me to identify a lot more anatomy that we really weren't taught as SLPs. So it was really, really a valuable experience. And lastly, how much can you learn from physical therapy? They have such an extensive background in exercise science and exercise physiology that we don't get much information about. And, I know so many of our friends, so many of our colleagues always say we learn so much from our PT colleagues. And it's so true. We learn a little bit about muscle physiology of the muscles of the throat, but we don't really learn about how everything works together and all the body systems. And so I think if you can find a PT colleague to get together with and learn from, you'll be able to learn so much more than we just are taught in our field. So I really want to encourage you to reach out to these other professionals. I know they can learn a ton from you, and you can learn just as much from them. To learn more, head over to MedSLPcollective.com/enroll, where we have a robust and vibrant community of SLPs and mentors to help you out. Check out the link in the description below.